Okay, welcome to our critical math Bucky call for the weekend of 5/27, 5/28, depending on which continent you're on. In America, it's Memorial Weekend, I discovered. So we're having a holiday and we're going to begin. So Joe, how are you feeling and what do you expect to get out of tonight?
Feel great. It's a privilege to be here as always. Thanks, Manu, for getting up. It's harder in cold weather. And my expectation for today is to continue to work through. I think we're starting a new section in critical path. So I'm excited to see what that will bring. And I'm really just looking to take away one thing from the meetup, and then I'll be happy. It'll be worth my time. Um, it's good to be here with you guys. Hey, Manu, how are you doing? How are you feeling? What would you like to take away from the day?
I I feel good now. I'm in the flow now. I was a little bit jittery just a few minutes ago. But anyway, I feel good. I feel appreciative that you guys are there. That we are going to continue in this journey of critical path. And as Joe said, what I expect is just practical lessons, following understanding of the issues that we have, and see how we can approach them and how we can contribute, however modestly that we can, but contribute towards the betterment. So we have to play our role. And this is an important tool, I think, to us. That's what I expect. Steve, how do you feel? What do you expect?
Well, I'm feeling pretty good. I wish more people were here. I just got to say that. And we're going to just plot ahead and get something out of it. That I walk away with one or two great inspirations. One of my granddaughters just recently graduated this week, had a graduation from high school. And we're having a graduation party for her tomorrow. And I'm presenting her with a letter and a lot of the ideas I'm giving her 5 principles, sharing 5 principles with her. And I get inspired a lot by these meetings and hope that I'm living a better life and I'm being a better example in my family and being a better example in my community and letting my light shine. So I'm really looking forward to whatever we glean from tonight. And Joe's right, we are starting a new section. We've completed the foreword in Critical Path, and we're going to start now on part 1. So we'll do that. And I'm a big believer in rotating around on the sharing, so on sharing. So let's see if we can do that. Joe, you want to start tonight? Here we go with part 1 on page 35 of Critical Path.
Yeah, sure. Hang on. My Zoom is not working. All right, it's staying now. Okay. Part 1, page 35, chapter 1, speculative prehistory of humanity. The Dymaxion world shows one world island in one world ocean with no breaks in the continental contours and with no visible distortion of the relative size of shape of any of the cartographic patterning. See map on page 169. The coloring on the full-size map is that of the optical spectrum, with red representing the hottest climates and dark blue representing the coldest climates. The borderline between yellow and green is the freezing line. The color shown for any area of the map represents the coldest conditions for that geographic region. Verkhoisenak in northeastern Serbia is the cold pole of the planet Earth's northern hemisphere. Yet sometimes in August at noonday, Verkhoisenak, am I saying that correctly?
I don't know.
is as hot.
Verkhoyansk. Verkhoyansk.
Frequence. Frequence. Yes.
Frequent.
That's the way I see
Okay.
frequence.
Ansk. All right, I'll get that. Is as hot as equatorial Africa. Frequently in midwinter, Verkhoyansk temperature falls to 65 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit. Equatorial Africa rarely has temperature at midwinter of less than 70 degrees above 0 Fahrenheit. The annual temperature variation between the hottest and coolest in equatorial Africa is only 20 degrees Fahrenheit, while annual variation at Verkhoyansk is 120 degrees Fahrenheit. I'll get that before the night. Maybe that's my takeaway. The vital factor that determines social patterns, human preoccupations, and economic customs of those dwelling in different geographic environments depends on how cold it gets, not how hot. With their shade-making artifacts, humans can live nakedly under the hottest of Earth's weather conditions, consisting physically of 60% water. Humans cannot live nakedly where it is cold, not below the freezing line of 32 degrees above 0 Fahrenheit. The Dymaxion map shows that 1, the colder an area gets, the more the annual temperature variation, and 2, the more geographical temperature varies annually, the more inventive the humans who live in those areas have to be to survive. If you live by Lake Victoria in Eastern Africa and you wish to cross it, you will invent a wooden boat. If you live beside Lake Baikal in central Serbia, and you wish to cross that body of water, you will invent a wooden boat in the summer and skates and sleds in the winter. The people who live in the colder areas are not more inventive. They simply have more environment-caused occasions in which to employ all humans' innate inventiveness. More humans from a hot country into a cold country, and they become as inventive as those who live there, or they perish.
Okay, let's pause for just a second. I would like to see how to pronounce that city, and so I'm just going to say pronounce that city. Come on, give it to me. Oh my gosh.
That read really weird.
Yeah, it was move people, not more people. Let me see. Verkhoyansk.
Oh, move human. Yeah, move humans. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay. I don't think it's impossible to read Bucky fast. So here we go. Am I not? Oh my gosh.
Verkhoyansk.
Verkhoyansk. Did you guys hear that?
Verkhoyansk.
Verkhoyansk. Verkhoyansk. There we go. Now we know how to say that. Cool. All right. Let me see here.
Go down to where we have.
Yeah.
So if you move people, you put them in conditions that are tough, they have to respond to that.
Right on. I'm going to read for a little while. I do believe I like rotating around. As flying insects are hit by the windshields of our speeding automobiles, their intricate wings, legs, sensors, and bodies splash out as flat yellow-green blobs. More than 50% of both volume and weight of the average physical structure and mechanics of all biological species consists of water. Humans humans structuring and integral organic equipping is over 60% water. Nobody can read that fast. That is not normal English. Earthians are hydraulically designed technologies. In fact, in Star Trek one time, the silicon life beings referred to human beings as ugly bags of water.
Can we discuss a little bit the significance of that?
Sure.
What does it imply to say that the structure of body is 50% water or more water?
Yeah.
What mechanical or physical property does it imply? I would say buoyancy.
Buoyancy.
And it has a lot of
Interesting.
implications, yes. Because of buoyancy, you can swim. Because of buoyancy, many things can happen.
Cool. Yeah.
Thank
I
you for
remember.
pointing that out.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Are you ready to continue?
Yeah, yes.
All structures consist of a balanced interaction between tensive and compressive forces. Nature services all her tension functions rigidly with 3 crystalline maximum cohesion bonds and services her compression resisting functions with double bonded flexibility hinged, variously viscous hydraulics. See, and I'm thinking back on the jitterbug, and I'm not really clear on understanding double bond and quadruple bond and those things, but I hear him talking about it. Those are non-compressible, but being flexible, they distribute their loads evenly to all surfaces of their triple bonded tension container systems. As long as the triple bonded tension crystallines containers are strong enough, the hydraulic structural system will hold its tensionally pre-designed, optimally extended shapes because the contained liquids which entirely fill the design container are non-compressible. Anybody want to talk about that?
Yeah, there was. I just got. I just got distracted. But the non-compressible but flexible, they distribute their bodies evenly to all surfaces of their triple bonded tensional container systems. I'm assuming that has, if I'm looking at from a Bucky perspective and Bucky's principles perspective, I'm trying to think that he's kind of referring to tensegrity in that case. Does that sound right? Anybody have any comments?
Yeah.
Am I understanding that correctly?
Probably is, yeah.
I mean, because it's
He says all structures
they have to be strong.
A balanced
Okay,
interaction
okay.
between tensive and compressive forces. So
Right.
tensive are tensivity and
That's
tensor.
that's tensegrity.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm kind of seeing that. All right.
Because water is essential to all the biological organisms' ecological system of regeneration on our planet, the major fact about it are vitally relevant. So now let's hear some vital facts. You want to start reading, Manu, for some vital facts?
Vital facts number 1. As already stated, is that biological life is 50% water.
Cool.
Vital fact number 2 is that we don't know of any water in the universe other than on our planet Earth. Almost 3/4 of Earth's surface is covered with water. The water coverage average in depth, the length of a vertically suspended chain consisting of 2,000 head to foot length human. The world oceans seem to so deep to people that the amount of water in the universe is thought of them as unlimited. But on a 12-inch diameter Earth globe, the proportional depth of the ocean to Earth's diameter will be only 3/1000th of an inch, which
Wow.
means that the absorption depth of a blue ink into the thin paper cover the globe upon which the ocean are printed is far deeper in respect of the miniature Earth globe than in the real world ocean in respect of the real Earth's globe.
Okay, so
Vital-
okay,
Adam?
do we want to talk about that for just a second? So what I'm hearing here is even though 70% of the Earth's surface is covered with water, that covering is very thin. And so while we are beings of water, and while the Earth looks like it's 70% water, there's really not that much water. That's what I got out of it. Is that what you guys are getting out of it?
Yes. And more
Yeah.
generally, it is our Earth has depth because of folding. It
Because
has
of
mountains and valleys because of folding, and because we have local experience of
Yeah.
great depth, it misleads us into thinking that the availability of water is infinite. It's so big.
For a fact, these Rocky Mountains that are just outside my house over here are a result of that folding of the continental plates. As the Pacific plate moves underneath, the main continental shift, the mountains stick up from there. And I can show you some really beautiful ridges over here that are obviously that were layered flat over a period of time, and they got shot up. So they're mountaintops are these neat folded things. So your folding is right on, Manu.
Okay. Should I continue?
Yes, please.
Vital fact number 3 is that water freezes and boils within closed limits. Anywhere in the universe except inside Earth's biosphere, the water of which we too consist will be either frozen, boiling, evaporated, or incandescent. Wow. This fact integrates to tell us that our terrestrial biosphere is a unique environment essential to the survival of human organisms, not only on our planet, but anywhere within the thus far discovered universe. To keep humans alive outside of our biosphere require reproducing and maintaining our exact biospherical condition within a physically powerful and superbly insulated into space rocketable container. Before the continental networks of reinforced concrete highways commenced half a century ago, human civilizations, as seen from a low-flying airplane, was always stand out along the brooks, rivers, ponds, lakes, seas, and ocean fronts. Vast real estate development and their underground hidden long-distance pipeline now tend to obscure this absolute dependence of humans upon water.
Okay, I'd like to just insert here. Evidently, he didn't know about that moon around Jupiter, I think it is, that's all water, right? So I don't think he knew about it at that time, but we're pretty convinced now that there's a moon in Jupiter, around Jupiter. Isn't it Jupiter? That's all water. And
I'm just learning this myself, I'll be honest.
yeah. So
Yeah, but it is water, but are other conditions enough to preserve our species as it is?
exactly right.
That's more of a point.
Yeah, the chances are slim that
Yeah,
will
if to
support
say
life.
it is water, that water is in there in the form that it is under very specific bounding conditions.
Right.
And in order to have that is yet to know. I mean, we know that Jupiter moon Might be water, it might be ice, but can you live there?
Yeah.
And can you live there freely? We don't know yet.
Yeah.
And that's the point.
Well, I think that even they're admitting that it's too cold to live there. But one of the things they do to find life is look for water.
Yeah.
That's important. So, Joe, do you want to read vital fact number
Sure.
4?
Yeah, vital fact number 4 is that water gains and loses heat more slowly than any other known profusely available substance. The South Pacific and Indian Ocean atolls were formed on the ocean surface rims of both extinct and active volcanoes, broken through the ocean bottom crust of the earth. The volcanoes and the radiation from the sun brought the water temperature to a level compatible with humans, normal 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, and the tropical ocean's temperatures were maintainable thereafter by the sun alone. The world's ocean's thermal stability keeps the world's temperature changes at minimum. All humans in all history have always been born naked, helpless for months, hungry, thirsty, curious, and ignorant. They could not have survived if born where they would freeze, be dehydrated, or bummed to death. The most logically propitious, forgive me, place for humans to survive and prosper within our planetary biosphere was on the coral atolls of the South Pacific and North Indian Oceans. Here, the barriers reefs effectively intercepted the Great Seas. The temperature of the almost still water inside the lagoons was so compatible with life that head above water, humans could stay in them continually without any unfavorable effect. The lagoons abounded in fish, and there were mildly sloping, easy to walk in or out upon beaches of white sand. Crystal fresh waters poured down the mountainsides, and coconuts full of milk fell to the ground and around the humans. Fruits were plentiful, and there were no wild animals threatening to eat the helpless baby humans. Discovering that they themselves could not drink the salt water, these island atoll people soon learned that the edible vegetation and fruits grew only from fresh water and sunlight. Nothing that fresh water came either from the sky or from springs. The atollers came to invent freshwater patties filling parallelly contoured, inner tiered, one above the other terraces at human waist height distances above one another. The
What?
terraced water, yeah.
What is he talking about there?
Can we,
I don't know. I was going to finish the paragraph.
I would just say
please.
that this is a story to fit a theory, right? As this was said, I mean, it obviously was very much influenced by his friend, the French commandant Cousteau. You heard about that, the French guy?
Jacques Cousteau.
Yes. So the reality is that, this was before many of the discoveries of the origin of human were made and popularized. So that can be excused on that. For now, the highest probability of human evolution origin is squarely in Africa. And is in Africa most mostly in the Rift, Africa, the East African Rift, and coming down here to the south in South Africa. I mean, most of the discoveries of the remains, datation studies are abundant here. So that's what I wanted to comment here. This story of human evolving from atolls and the coconut, yes, it is a story, but it's not been substantiated with the discoveries that have been made in terms of tracing the origin. I mean, the last one that was discovered was the Naledi. You heard about the Naledi Homo, right?
I have not.
That was less than 10 years ago. That is now a species between Homo sapiens and apes. If you call Steve, you can research it. Naledi, N-A-L-E-D. Let me just put it here. Naledi. Naledi Homo. Homo something. Just check that. No, like that. You see what I put? Yes. Naledi Homo sapien.
Oh,
Yeah. That is like, it's like 10 years ago.
Cool. Okay, and here he's talking about just the fact that the humans learned to create tiers, terraced, gardens to grow their rice paddies, and they were tiered, and they were waist-high tiered. So the water looked like it was stable, but it was gradually moving downhill. I think that's what he's basically saying there. So slowly as it appeared to be motionless, ultimately they leached into the sea. I don't know what an atoller is. Do you know what that is?
The atolls, you don't know the atolls? In the Pacific. Look at the atolls.
Define.
Yeah. Just look at what the atolls are. Atolls are things that form at sea from ring-shaped reef, island or chain of island form of coral. So you have many of those in the South Pacific.
Yeah.
There they are.
Okay. What's the difference between an atoll and an island?
I'm assuming that an island's inhabitable and that this is just
Atolls
coral,
are very
right?
small. Very small.
They look big.
What's the difference between an
Look, yeah,
atoll and an
they're
island?
small, really. Look at it, see what is the difference?
Yeah, it says right here that there's it's land with a lagoon in its center is called an atoll.
Yeah.
So a ring of growing coral with an open lagoon in its center is called an atoll. The process of atoll formation may take as long as 30 million years to occur.
Yeah. And you see that if you have water in the middle, that water becomes mostly fresh. So the ring forms a barrier between salt water and fresh water.
Yeah.
Because if the water is on top of it, you're under condition that doesn't evaporate completely, you're going to have salt that's going to be deposited at the bottom. And then leaving water on the top of it fresh. And that's why, for example, it's favorable to coconut. You know that coconut, what they do is that the husk and the shell of a coconut are dense enough to segregate salt from fresh and milk that is in the middle. Fresh water and milk that is in the How do you call the white of a coconut? Coconut itself, the flesh of it that we eat, is rich in milk, and in the middle you have fresh water that is sweet.
Yeah.
And outside you have a husk that allows that to be protected and preserved like that inside.
Yeah.
Have you eaten coconut, Joe?
What about a
I'm
coconut?
sorry.
I'm asking if Joe has ever eaten coconut.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, yeah. And have you harvested one? Have you broken one?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Not for a long time.
Yeah, I do it every couple of years. In Florida, we had a coconut tree right in our yard, so we got coconuts every year.
But I think that most importantly, what Bucky is saying here is that we are born naked and helpless, and everything we build our
Yeah.
environment. It is a built environment that we build. We have the given of the atmosphere in this earth. We are born naked and helpless, and it is only our ingenuity, our cooperation, and I would say our love that allow us to build things that shelter us and ensure that we survive.
That's a profound point.
I think you have this yet to read, right?
I do. I had the second half to a paragraph. It was this terraced water ditching started high on the Hillsdales or hillsides. Sorry, down and through this inner dammed valving, the fresh waters slowly flowed, so slowly as to usually appear to be motionless. Ultimately, they leached into the sea. The atollers made small and large freshwater vessels of animal skins, wood, and stone. Vessels that held water inside and dug out log vessels that excluded the water. Living half in the water, they became natural hydraulic inventors. It is relevant to our speculative prehistory reviewing of all known clues that in common only with water dwelling mammals such as whales and porpoises. Humans shed saltwater tears, as do none of the other primates. Marrying a fast-running horse with another fast-running horse increases the mathematical probability of concentrating the fast-running genes. Ergo, has high probability of producing an even faster running horse, which hybrid needs much care, having lost its general capability to cope with the wide range of hostile environmental events. Though the mathematical probability consequent to sorting out and concentrating special behavioral capability genes and isolated pairing and inbreeding of parents manifestly rich in those special physical capabilities, we humans have learned how to accomplish the development of ever more highly specialized biological species. We note that inbreeding of special frequently employed capabilities has always been accomplished only at the cost of outbreeding general adaptability to cope with the infrequently occurring high energy concentrating events. Humans geographically isolated for many generations, for instance, in a high mountainous enclosed valley, inevitably inbreed those of their numbers most successfully and lengthily surviving under those special environmental conditions because the surviving types are the only ones left with which to cohabitate. This automatically concentrates the most favorable genes for local survival. The highly inbred progeny become specialists in surviving under the locally prevailing special environmental conditions. We have no experimental evidence of successfully interbreeding highly divergent special biological species and their unique capabilities to produce completely effective general adaptability. If, on the other hand, we continued successfully to inbreed generation after generation of champion Olympic gymnasts, we would soon come to superior inner tree jumping and speculative prehistory of humanity, swinging monkeys with no intellectual talent and general adaptability usefulness than that of the bright chimpanzee.
Okay,
Wow.
For this,
I would just like to comment here. So I hadn't thought of this much, but really what he's saying is that when a species interbreeds, it develops a certain characteristic that moves a certain characteristic forward, but by becoming a specialist, it's not as good as surviving in different kinds of conditions. That's one of the underlying messages that I'm getting here.
that is the message.
And I hadn't really thought of that before. You know, I do know
Oh, I
that.
have.
Have you?
Yes. But it's
Yeah.
even more than that, Steve.
Yeah.
Go back to the water stuff.
To the what?
The water.
Yeah.
Under very local conditions, water can be very deep and appear very vast because we are constrained locally. And if you were to spread water on the surface of a globe, it wouldn't be deeper than how ink from a pen will penetrate paper, right? It will be very thin. He said that before. So with evolution, we have been specializing by dividing. But if you divide, specialized, and you start interbreeding those things, what happened is that you're going to spread the finite over many, and it's going to be very thin. You're going to have, as he said, without special conditions, you're just going to have the average intelligence as he compared that to a bright chimpanzee. Am I right in saying that, or is it completely out of context?
No, I think that's absolutely correct.
Cool. So go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm putting something in the chat about, it's an interesting group of peoples that live in the, oh crap, I don't think the link worked. No, I guess the link doesn't work. Yeah, damn it. I'll try and get a good link for it. They're called the Tarahumara.
The Tarahumara or the Huicholes, they're Native Americans that live in Arizona, Mexico. Tarahumara.
Correct. And they're also known as the running peoples. And what their bodies do is, interestingly enough, I can't get it to link the page. It's an interesting thing to see how their bodies adapt, because they can't necessarily adapt to Western culture because their bodies store fat at such a high rate, because it's part of, they don't necessarily eat through the winter. And this is the individuals that actually ended up surviving in the mountains. So when they move into Western culture, they start eating Western foods, they just blow right up. What I'm just saying is the adaptability factor is what Bucky kind of seems to be getting at here in certain certain parts of just one example of how you know how certain individuals or groups even evolve.
Yeah,
But
I
their
read
bodies
that.
are very efficient at storing fat.
Yeah, there it is. The Tarahumara Indians in Mexico, self-called, this is the Raramuri, or this is the indigenous people that you're talking about. These are unbelievable runners. They're unbelievable runners. And they are, in fact, this guy talked about him in a book on running, and I don't remember, but that's the group you were talking to there.
Well, and their bodies just store fat at a really efficient way, and that's how they live through the winter in the mountains. They've evolved that way, but when they move into Western culture and they start eating Western foods, they blow right up and have diabetes and every other problem.
Yeah.
There are countries that have really specialized in using, I mean, in exploiting that particular disposition to win Olympics. I mean, if you get into any long distance run at the Olympics or in World Championship athletics, most of the medals go to people from Ethiopia, Kenya, East Africa, because they live on highlands, and they're just their natural environment. Ethiopia is on average 6,000 feet high. It's also like here in South Africa, if you go north in the or in the what we call Gauteng, that area is also about 6,000 feet. And you have a lot of champions, long distance. There's one of the world's most famous ultra marathon that's called the Comrades Marathon. I don't know if you've ever heard about it. It's quite long. And a lot of champions come from that area. Their body just knows how to use better oxygen.
Yeah, well, yeah. A lot of people like to train up in the mountains because it forces their lungs to become more efficient for running. One of the points that I keep coming back to here, and maybe I'm repeating myself, but this is his point here. We have no experimental evidence of successfully interbreeding highly divergent special biological species and their unique capabilities to produce completely effective general adaptability. So if you take an animal that runs really fast and you breed them with an animal that can swim really well, that you don't necessarily produce somebody who has generally effective adaptability. Breeding creates more and more specialized. And then on the other hand, we continued successfully to inbreed generation after generation of champion Olympic gymnasts. You'd soon come to some super inter-tree jumping and swinging monkeys with no intellectual talent and general adaptability usefulness than that of bright chimpanzees. So he's making a point about evolution here. I thought that was cool. Any other comments or thoughts here?
That is one general thing that's still common. It comes from the second principle of thermodynamics, second law of thermodynamics, in that when you divide, to come back is irreversible, because you lose
entropy.
Yes, because something goes somewhere.
Yeah, entropy is irreversible.
So evolution has a direction.
Yeah, it seems to. Things disperse. Things go from organized and concentrated, disorganized and concentrated. Cool. Do you want to finish this last paragraph, Joe? I
Sure.
think that's where we are.
For this and other persuasive reasons, my speculative prehistory has assumed since 1927 Darwin's evolution of life, the simple to the complex, accomplished through progressive agglomeration, of single cell amoebas. Is that
Yeah.
Amoebas. To be in reverse of the facts. When Darwin was a young man at the time of the voyage of the Beagle, Dalton was among the world's leading physicists. Mendeleev,
Yes.
Mendeleev, forgive me. Periodic table of the elements has not yet been conceived of. Dalton favored the concept that all atoms were produced by combinations of the hydrogen atoms. This concept and Darwin's single cell concept fitted neatly into humanity's propensity for looking for the building block of the universe. People's imagination is childlessly stimulated at the idea of finding the key. Spontaneously, we are simplistically inclined. It feeds the ego. Oh boy, if I had the key, what couldn't I do? Today, it is eminently clear that human beings' physiological composition consists of a relative abundance of the 92 regenerative chemical elements, atoms, similar to the relative abundance of chemical elements in the universe, which universe consists of a plurality individually unique generalized principle. In 1922 came physics demonstration of a fundamental complementarity of inherently different components of physical phenomena. In 1956, the Nobel Prize in Physics was given for the proof that the complementaries were not mirror images one of the other. The number of chemical elements present in the amoeba will not accommodate the chemical elements complexity of universe. Universe is inherently complex and eternally regenerative. So he does talk about regenerative. It can have no beginning or ending. Vast numbers of scientists as yet labor vainly to account for the misconception of beginnings and endings. We have a minimum. We have at minimum the neutron and the proton, which always and only coexist. The electron and the positron, the neutrino and antineutrino, and all. There is a single building block. There are only complexities of complex systems. As the great mathematician Leonard, is it Euler or Euler? I was told Euler the other day.
I've look auf Deutsch. It can be pronounced either way. Okay.
Thank you.
I've looked it up and I've argued about it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's
Can we?
somebody's.
Can
Go
we
ahead. Yeah,
comment?
sure, please.
Says a lot of things.
Yeah, he said a lot, specifically about generalized principles.
And but I mean, I would like to hear from Steve first.
About what?
But what he said in that paragraph from today, it is eminently clear.
I didn't understand that because he was talking about chemicals and atoms and how they interrelated, and it went past me.
But what do you think of human biology human beings' physiology, composition consists of a relative abundance of the 92 regenerative chemical elements atoms, similar to the relative abundance of the chemical element in universe.
I'm sure that's true, but it doesn't mean much to me other than I'm made of a lot of stuff. And the stuff is complex.
Well, I mean that it means first to me that you are in universe, therefore you are part of the universe.
Yeah.
The second thing that it says is that universe consists of plurality of individually unique generalized principles. So universe is diverse. Universe has this element, and this element, they are regenerative and they coexist, and they are organized into systems. Universe is a system of systems. That's why you have generalized laws. You don't have a law if you don't have a system.
Okay.
To have a law, you need to have plurality because the law link part of a thing in a coherent pattern of behavior. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And they go on to say that the number of chemical elements present in the amoeba will not accommodate the chemical element complexity of the universe. How
Okay.
do you see that in contrast to humans?
Well, certainly we have some amazing parts in us from iron and phosphorus and a bunch of stuff, but I'm sure there are things outside of a human body. There are just as many things outside as there are inside, so I don't understand much more than that.
I might, this is a speculation, I might think that you might be saying that in human, you have the presence of, in actual fact, in the physiological means what does physiological mean, Steve?
What does physiological mean?
Yeah,
Means has to do with the physiology, it has to do with the body.
yes, but what does it mean in simple terms?
Mechanical, as opposed to psychological.
Physiology. Definition of branch of biology that deal with the normal functions of living. Okay. So in terms of functions, we have those elements that seem to be doing the same functions as in the universe. But the amoeba wouldn't have it. So it seems to say, to portend to what Bucky say of the role of human in nature, is that we are local information gatherers, storers, transmitters in support of the integrity of the eternally regenerative universe. And to do that, we really need to also take care of ourselves, our micro, in order to relate and do what we are to do in relationship to that macro. Does it mean then, does it mean anything? What I'm saying?
Yeah, it does. I mean, overall in this section, that up till now, what I see, Bucky's setting us up with the foundations of evolution, not totally dissimilar to what he did with how he approached Grunch of Giants, where he talked about, literally the beginning of civilizations and the beginning of tribes, and when tribes would actually go along and rob one another. He's just bringing us from the beginning of time to where we are, and I'm seeing that clearly, and I appreciate him doing it in his way, in his own particular way. And so that's what I'm getting out of this entire first kind of chapter, coming out of this. But I am looking forward to the more recent events, just as I was with Grunts of Giants.
But read this, Joe. Universe is inherently complex and eternally regenerative. Universe has no beginning and the end. Universe is, I would say, universe is structural. Universe is a principle. Is in principle.
Well, I was actually going to ask that. That was something that I wanted to bring up, because the idea that it's a principle, which makes sense, makes it finite. But I don't understand it can have no beginning or ending.
Well, tell
Because
me,
Bucky's universe is finite.
between the egg and the chicken, which one preceded?
I like
Between
that.
the egg and the
Yeah, which is first, the chicken or the egg? It's a system, and it's hard to discern what is first, and to look for a beginning or an ending between a chicken and the egg is kind of a waste of energy, because there is no single building block. There are only complexes of complex systems.
Yes.
And the chicken is a complex system, and the egg is a complex system. And they seem to
Can you
relate.
actually,
What?
go ahead. I'm sorry, I interrupted. No.
They just seem to relate to each other in a systematic way. There's no beginning or ending. I think that's his point.
Yes. And you are in, really, there's no door. There's metaphorically, there's no door that you open like this and you walk from out into universe.
Yeah.
You are in, you are swimming into it.
Yeah.
You are part of it. So all you need to do to swim and to do what you have to do is to understand how it works. Maybe there is a beginning and the end, but it's not for our species, where we are.
Yeah, everything's a process, and the process continues. Even if there was a Big Bang, everything that existed after the Big Bang existed before the Big Bang, just in a different way. It's just, and we don't understand it yet. There is no single building block. There are only complexes of complex systems. That's what I'm getting the punchline here.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's okay, I'll go ahead and read some for a bit here. Or let me
I want
see.
to hear from Joe. Joe is thinking. He's in a thinking mode. I can see it.
No, I'm just pondering actually the now that I understand it, that we're actually, what he meant by there's no beginning, there's no ending, and there's just systems over within complex systems. Things are actually seemingly making a little bit more sense to me. I was a little lost there for a moment.
Good.
Trying to figure out the finite universe between no beginning and then no ending, and I understand it now a little bit better.
And you know the word, he chooses the word very well. It can have, rather than it has. It can have. That is the consequence of something. Because it is eternally regenerative, it can have not. Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's interesting with his critique of scientists too. Anyway.
Yeah.
And it was also interesting that you see that it is from, in terms of a look at the system, it's from 4, right? The electron, the positron, the neutrino,
Right.
the antineutrino, those are all
Right.
4.
That's right. That's absolutely right.
Yeah, I would be fun to look up the 1922 Nobel Prize in Physics and see exactly what that experiment was that he's referring to, because just like everything else in terms of the progression of, you know, people who live in an atoll, you know, he's describing the progression here in very unique ways. And so, you know, as long as we're getting that way, we're in good shape, I think.
But it says very clearly that the tetrahedron is irreducible here. That's what he's saying.
He says the tetrahedron is what?
Irreducible.
Yeah, he didn't say that here.
You fall. At minimum is tetrahedron.
Yeah. So you're reading, Joe. I made a big thing out of Euler and Euler. I hear it pronounced both ways, and people that I respect say it both ways. I'd like to see what Sabina Hassenfelder says about it, because she is German and she would say it a German way. So it'd be
It's
fun.
Euler in German.
It's what?
I would say Euler.
Yeah, but man sagt Euler, if that's a umlaut, but it's not written with an umlaut, it's written with an E. So Euler is a good way to pronounce it. And we're English, so we say it like an English people. We speak in English. So as the great mathematician, go ahead.
And then in the number things, you say electron and positron, neutrino and antineutrino, and all.
Yeah.
And then if you do numerology, the importance of a 5.
The importance of phi?
Yes.
Yeah, he doesn't.
5.
Well, 5?
Of 5. 1, 2, 3, and 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's all you need.
All I need for what? He doesn't say anything about 5.
Okay, you need 4 to make a system, a
Right.
minimum system.
Right.
And then you have that 4 and the system itself. You get what I'm trying to say?
No, I have 4.
Read what he says. He says, which always and only consist the electron and positron, the neutrino, antineutrino, and all.
Yeah, and others. There's the other parts. He's referring to the quantum table, like he's referring
Yeah, the other parts are not fundamental. This is the foundations. Those are those vertices. You have a tetrahedron, which is made of 4 vertices and its own. Or you can say its nucleus is what it is.
But I don't see how you're getting the tetrahedron out of this. He says we have
you have the electron and the positron are always in relationship. Then you have a neutrino and the antineutrino always in relationship. That is it.
Well, he mentions
And all of those form a whole system.
He starts with neutrons and protons above that. So here's the neutrons and protons, and then he goes from neutrons and protons, which always coexist. Then he talks about the electron and the positron, and the neutrino and the antineutrino. So there's 3 right there.
No, it says the
And
minimum of a neutron and proton, which always and only coexist. That is a system of system. Now you get now into dividing that system into 4 elements. The 4 quantas. What are the 4 quantas of energy?
What are they?
Bucky described them. I don't have them here now, but if you get the 4 quantum energy, describe them.
Well, I mean, but he's not mentioning it here. He talks about neutrons and protons. He talks about electrons and positrons. He talks about neutrinos and antineutrinos. There are 3 antiparts he's talking about. And then he says, et al. And all. So now we can talk about quarks, up quarks, down quarks, neutral quarks. I could, in a few seconds here, I could look up and find a chart of the fundamental elements of the universe.
No, that's not what I'm saying, Steve.
Yeah.
I'm saying this one. He's saying one principle is at minimum the neutron and proton. And he said this neutron and proton always and only coexist.
Everybody knows that.
Okay. The electron and the positron always and always coexist. The neutrino and the antineutrino always and always coexist.
Sure.
Okay. But there's nothing bigger than or smaller than the electron and the positron, is there? Or neutrino, antineutrino, to make a 4, a tetrahedron. In terms of quantum energy, is there anything that is smaller than those?
Yeah, quarks exist on the same table.
But what is a quark? Is the quark a positron or a neutron or whatever? What is it?
I think they make neutrons and they make protons.
Exact. They should fit in that. That is what is the minimum. The principle of those 2 is a minimum. And I'm saying you have 2 principles of 2 to make a whole of 4. Maybe it's not important.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. You're bringing up the symmetry of the universe here, but I'm not sure he's not stressing those points. You're just bringing up that those are things he's talking about. And you know, over the last couple of weeks, I've been looking at these tables. I think I don't know. I'm thinking right now of a really great video that talks about exactly what these particles are. And, you know, and they're not actually particles. They're perturbations on a field. If we go to quantum field theory, it's slightly different than quantum mechanics, I think. So it just depends on the paradigm one is using here. So I think your point's well taken. It's just I'm not.
Okay, let's just take it this way, Steve. Universe is plural at the minimum of 2. You heard this, right?
Right.
But it's plural at the minimum of 2 systems.
Okay.
So what is the minimum of 2 systems?
What is the minimum of 2 systems?
It's 4. It's the tetrahedron.
Okay.
So that's why you say that
one system. I thought a tetrahedron was one system.
No, I'm saying, listen to me well.
Yeah.
I say universe is plural at the minimum of 2.
Sure.
Like neutron and proton is a minimum. Right?
Okay.
So it's a minimum. So, but it's a minimum of 2 systems. Because there's only systems and the complex of systems in universe.
I get that. I'm just
So
not.
if it is a minimum of 2 systems, is a minimum of 2 systems like that, which form a tetrahedron. That tetrahedron can be convex or concave, but it forms a tetrahedron. That's why you have 4 quantas of energy. And the whole story of studying universe is to know when they are convex or concave and how the timing of that. That's the whole story of science.
You're reading that into this. What his point here is that there's no beginning and no ending because everything is in a system. And your point earlier about the chicken and the egg is exactly right on point. We can talk about tetrahedrons and neutrinos and what makes a system, but his point is that systems are complex and regenerative, and there's no beginning and there's no ending.
I agree.
And that's his main point here. And then we can extrapolate a lot of other cool stuff from there. And you were
agree with
extrapolating
that.
some cool stuff, but I can't integrate neutrinos, and because if I remember right, a proton is a positron. It's the same thing. An electron, the opposite of an electron, is a proton, but I'm not sure of that. I'm just recalling back to some stuff that I've read. Definitely neutrino and antineutrino are definitely opposites, and definitely electrons and positrons are often, but sometimes positrons are protons, I think. But I don't know that. It depends on the system we're talking about. And it depends on the rules in that system. And I think if you field from quantum mechanics over to quantum field theory, things change. You use different coding, different formulas, different Greek letters are used in those different formulas. Like Maxwell uses a different Greek letter than Euler uses, and Euler uses a different Greek letter than Schrodinger. But they all have theories about energy and universe, and they all are speaking the same language from a different paradigm. So you're bringing in some other paradigms, which is very nice. But I can't comprehend it because I can't connect all the dots. I can't create my tetrahedron. So, but I think it's good to think about it, and it's stirring my brain up really good. So, Joe, do you want to finish reading as the great mathematician Leonard Euler, if you want to do that? Are
Yeah,
you ready?
sure, no problem.
Maybe we're not ready to read. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I'm ready. No,
Okay.
I'm fine. As the great mathematician Leonard Euler discovered with his topology, all visual experiences consist of three inherently different and unique phenomena. One, lines. Two, when lines cross, we get vertexes, corners, fixes, points. Three, when several lines intercross, we get an area, window, or face, or as we call them in synergetics, 1, trajectories, 2, crossings, 3, openings. See 1000.7.11-15 synergetics, volume 1, 1001.22-31 synergetics, volume 2. A system divides all of the universe into all of the universe.
Sorry. There we go.
That's all right. All of the universe outside the system. B, all of the universe inside the system. And C, the little bit of remaining universe which comprises the system that separates the macrocosm from the microcosm. The minimum system of the universe is complex 4 corners, 4 windows, and 6 edges. Thank you, Euler. That will do, Darwin.
Now, he was obviously cracking a joke there. Thank you, Euler. That will do, Darwin. In other words, he's saying thank you, Euler, and thank you, Darwin. And he's basically just restated Euler and Darwin by his a system divides all the universe into those things, right? Is that how you guys are reading it?
Yeah, he's putting Darwin down. I mean, but this is actually, if we read this very carefully, this is foundational. When we're thinking about just getting Bucky, and I know Steve, I owe you an email about connecting on how we can talk about graphs and how nodes connect to one another.
Right.
And so this is kind of this is the foundation for what he's talking about right here. What's a line? What's a directed graph? Versus and when lines cross, we get vertexes. These are the corners, the points.
Right.
So that how these connect together. This is how we start to think in terms of synergetics and how things and regenerative systems, in the sense that how we look at a more holistic, I don't want to say the whole, a more holistic perspective on how an organization or a country or whatever any kind of entity may be able to work together with other entities. And then, it talks about the little bit of remaining universe, which comprises the system that separates the macrocosm from the microcosm. The minimum universe 4 is complex 4 corners, 4 windows, and 6 edges. That's fundamental. These are these 3 paragraphs are, if you get the basics of it, really can actually, I mean, I know you guys do, but for me, if keeping these things in mind, allow me to start to think of things in terms of how to make connections within a variety of different industries. I'd even say places, organizations, whatever it may be. So I think that this is it's foundational. It's foundational, and it's important. It's something that I've thought about quite a bit, and I think it's going to be a very important thing when we present on graph theory on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
One
Okay.
thing, can I make some comments
Please
here?
go ahead.
Please do.
It is important to me that it says all visual experiences. So we always experience interferences. That is one thing. The second thing that I want to comment on is that last phrase. Thank you, Euler, that we do Darwin. And he placed it where in the line of history. It says that Euler went from general. And from the general, there were things that applies to what we observe today, macro to micro. Darwin was the reverse. Darwin went from the observations of scanty effect and tried to generalize with a theory, right?
That's a very good
point.
point.
With Darwin, people after Darwin, people have tried to say, okay, we find the key, the building block of humanity. It's not possible. That's why he say will do. But Euler, his topology describes a thing in a way that is logical with a generalized or a general principle.
You're absolutely right, Manu, and the implications of this is profound. And this is fundamentally the difference between. Sorry, I just started to feel like a pretty bad stomachache, so if I look a little pale, forgive me. Yeah, but the difference between these two highlight another Bucky principle in the sense of it's almost ephemeralization versus a Malthusian scarcity approach towards economics, and that would be the connection between the two, and the idea that both Malthus and Darwin were looking at things from a micro perspective and applying them to macro, almost generalized principles, led them to make some inaccurate predictions. Whereas Euler looked at things topologically and went from the macro to the micro. And you can make an argument that when you take the macro perspective, that you can understand how you'll start to see the possibility. You won't see all the answers, but you'll see the possibility of doing more with less. And doing more with less, meaning in the sense that, ephemeralization. So you start to see where the dots connect between each other and how things could actually work, more efficiently by leveraging each other's by applying generalized principles and leveraging resources. And actually, you can do that in an organic way. So it's a very important point that's being made here. I'm surprised he made it at this particular moment in time in the book, but I guess he's talking about evolution. So it's interesting how he brought it along with Euler in this, Euler with Elias. I wish he were alive to tell us.
Yeah. Okay, so I've just kind of, so synergetic trajectories are Euler's lines. Crossings are Euler's, when lines cross, we get vertexes, corners, fixed points. He's calling them crossings. And then Euler talked about when several lines intercross, we get an area. And he's talking about these are become openings. So there's several lines crossing. There's your triangle. That gives you your openings. And then he goes from the trajectories to the crossings to the openings to the system, minimum system of universe. And that's what he's breaking out here. And then he adds something else and says, now that we have this basic structure, whether it's the openings or the tetrahedron, which is actually, this is the basic form, this is the basic structure. Everything outside is macro, everything inside is micro. And then he remarks, the little bit of remaining universe, which comprises the system that separates the macro from the micro, that's a little bit of energy too. I think he's referring to the edges right there. He's referring to the edges of the tetrahedron.
Exactly.
This is what's coming up for me. I have to break things out like this because if I don't understand.
Me too. No, this is fantastic. Actually, the fact that you're doing that, I really appreciate it. Openings. Can somebody give me a really quick openings in what regard? I see the okay, never mind. It's faces kind of openings, correct?
Euler called them faces
fine.
or windows. Faces.
Yeah.
I think window is more Bucky's term. But Euler called them faces. That's what we have in an opening. We have a face.
No, it is windows in regard to our experiences. And it is go back to what I say. Visual experiences.
Yeah.
So you are seeing and sensing energy in motion. So energy in motion has to go through some opening, some window, to go out or in. Energy is always, since energy is made of quantas are matter, right? You need space. You need space. However microscopic it is, for it to get into within, for example, a container, a crystalline container. So structure, that's why topologically, structures, they have faces and line, windows and lines. And they have vertices. That is the join of two lines. And that's what he described there. When you have two trajectories that come together, that cross, they form a vertex. When there are three, they form a window. That is a face. That is a face of a polyhedron. And the definition of a polyhedron is when those triangles, they close. If they close, is a polyhedron. If it doesn't close, it's not a polyhedron. So the first closing is the closing of a window. That is the minimum of it. Then they hinge together in different ways to form a closed volume. And the hinging is the turn. We also saw that the hinging is the turn like this. It's like doing this. So it's the folding. That is the edging. Now it has a relationship to the dimension of that system that you want to build. And remember that a system form a whole is not, I wouldn't say an isolated, but a system form a local in universe that is governed by certain laws that are the properties of that polyhedron, like that. That's why the system will always divide the space between the inside, the outside, and then the system or the envelope itself, the structure.
Cool. And he complicates things by bringing in macrocosm and microcosm here. He implies them here, everything outside the system, everything inside the system. What was a revelation for me was that the little bit of remaining universe which comprises the system that separates the micro from the macro, or the macro from the micro. So these trajectories have a little bit of universe. The edges.
Yeah, but think about it, Steve, in terms of energy. Let's just say that universe is energy, right?
Right.
Okay, the structure is always, the micro is always very small in comparison to the remainder. And you need energy to maintain the boundary. The boundary doesn't come on its own like that.
Right.
There's an equivalence, there's a price to pay to have that. And that is, you know, like, you know, a kind, your edges, maintaining those edges, maintaining the fold. I mean, this fold of anything, this is like this. The fold of this is for as long as I'm maintaining like that. It takes some energy for me to get it like that, right? It was like this before. I need to move it. There is energy that I spend, and I need to keep it like that for it to maintain the form. I also need some energy to do this, and some energy to fold it like that. But I need to maintain it if it will exist. So there's a price to maintain it. And that price is what it takes to maintain these edges.
Cool.
If I let it go, it goes, it's no more. The equivalent was what I'm spending with my muscles to do this. To fold it like that, and like that.
Yeah.
There's energy here that is coming from some source. It's spending, and it's part of that system. How do you account for it?
Including the brain power to coordinate those muscles.
Yes. That's what the topology translated. So the summation, you know, you want to make it in the set theory, you say the whole is the outside, what you call the complementary of this structure, the inside plus the envelope of the structure. That defines the whole in terms of set theory. That's the way you define it.
Right on.
So if I want to put it in a Venn diagram, I'll have this, that, and this thing will be the intersection between the two. This will be the visual experience, which is always an interference. Isn't it?
It is.
It's an interference of energy coming through this window, through that window, through this window, and through that window. That interfere to make this.
Cool.
Okay.
All right. And that's, even though we started a little bit beyond the appointed time, it's about 1:45 right now. So if we each take 5 minutes, we'll have a good set of takeaways. And if we take less than that, we'll be out a little bit early. So we'll see what happens. Joe, how are you feeling and what's your takeaway tonight?
You know, I appreciate everybody being here. I don't feel particularly well. I actually started to feel a little nauseous during the time we started, and now I just really don't. I don't know what it was. So I had a cup of coffee. Maybe that was just, maybe I haven't hydrated enough today. That's a, possibility as well. So I'm not feeling that great, but I'm still happy to be here because I still got a lot out of the call. I think we had a really good conversation. I think that that last section in particular will really pay dividends in some of our calls that are coming up over the next couple of weeks. I really liked what, I'm always reminded to be careful with my words, and Manu just reminded that by when he said it's not windows, it's frames. And that's such an important word to use because that's what we have. We have frames of reference, and that's how we look at the world. And those, even though it's seems minor, but it is an important point. I think that by just breaking down edges and nodes and just the way we did right there. Again, that's something that needs to be continually done if we're not doing it on a regular basis. You see the evolutionary aspect of things that we talked about, which was interesting, but you also, I don't know, I felt like I also saw some elements of cosmic accounting coming into play today in certain sections in a couple different areas. That's and that's something to always keep an eye out for when we're talking about I forget the terms already, positrons and I would have to go back and look. It's just not coming to me at the moment. But anyway, I know that wasn't the most terribly articulate takeaway, but I'm not feeling 100%. So I'm doing my best here. I'm really not feeling well. I feel like I almost have chills. So in any case, with that being said, Manu, thank you for joining us today. How are you feeling? What'd you take away?
I feel actually exceptionally good this morning.
Good.
Because I think that we went through some very fundamental. And let me make a special, kind of, it might be a judgment. I don't understand why people run away from the geometry. Because Bucky is fundamentally speaking the language of geometry here. And is drawing logical consequences. Some of which are, we are in the universe. The analogy was that we've made of the components that are in universe, the elements, and then we also more than 50% water. We a lot of water in a vessel. In a vessel in which there is compression, tension. And this is very important. I will read it entirely slowly, and that will be my takeaway from today.
Yeah.
All structures consist, first, Earthians are hydraulically designed technologies. All structures consist of a balanced interaction between tensive and compressive forces. Nature services all attention function rigidly with 3 crystalline maximum cohesion bonds. 3, triangle. And services her compression resisting function with double bonded, flexibly hinged, variously viscous hydraulics. These are non-compressible, but being flexible, they distribute their loads evenly to all the surfaces of their triple bonded, which are non-compressible, tensional containers, container systems. As long as the triple bonded tensional crystalline containers are strong enough, the hydraulic structural system will hold its tensionally pre-designed, optimally extended shapes, because the contained liquids which entirely fill the design container are non-compressible. The contained liquid which entirely fill the pre-designed container are non-compressible. The container is a boundary. In order to have a system, the first thing that you have to set is the boundary. In business, what is your ambition? What do you want to reach? You need to know it.
That's right.
So once you set it, then you can describe a structure. It's not before. It's once you set the boundary, then energy can flow in, because the boundary divides the system space between inside, outside, and the boundary itself. Therefore, you can now start measuring the flow of energy. Measure comes from dividing. A boundary is a fundamental division. It's the first division that you make. You divide by 2, whatever hole that you have. You want to see the detail of it, you first slice it. And to me, it's so fundamental. And Joe, you talk about the fundamental of this. It's so fundamental. If somebody came to Bucky and just understood this page on his own effort, that would take him a long way.
Absolutely.
But what I've noticed is that as soon as you start talking about geometry, there are derogative commentary and people run away. Maybe I'm wrong, but it is just we make it difficult for ourselves. So in terms of being equanimous and open to understanding it, we start bringing it a lot of complexity of our own creation, and therefore completely obscuring the beautiful, simple, communicated principle that is in there. And that is my takeaway. My takeaway is that it is fundamental, like Joe said, to understand these introductions and these words and how they are put together in terms of announcing what is to be and what it is. That's my takeaway. Steve, how do you feel? What do you take away?
Well, I got to tell you, this has been a tough one. I think Bucky, learning the Bucky language of things requires me to stop thinking in my stereotypical, already presumed ideas of the way things are. And so we've read some very difficult words here tonight about him describing how human beings are water, and how human beings in a certain environment, because not everybody was evolved around or lived around an atoll, but he went with the water thing, went with the atoll. I was delighted to know what an atoll is. It's a lagoon in the middle of a coral ridge, and that was nice. But he kind of stuck in that paradigm, and it just demands that I stop thinking of things the way I normally do. And then how these terraces for rice paddies, that's what I'm saying about it. He talked about paddies and terraces, how the water drains down and it's always moving, but we don't see it moving. But, you know, and he requires that I think about things a different way. And sometimes it's such a pain in the neck, but, you know, he's an engineer. In a way, I think he's having fun with everybody, proving that he's an engineer. But I also think it's important to break up the stereotypes. So that's one thing I have. The other thing is that I really am delighted that you guys were patient with me while I broke out that sheet comparing Euler or Euler. By the way, I'm going, because I looked that up. In fact, I can show you right now YouTube videos of how to say Euler or Euler that are stopped in the middle, because I was reviewing them. I did a study on his name about 5 months ago. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to listen to Sabina Hassenfelder, who is German, and I love the way she speaks English, because when she says physicist, I'm amazed that she actually gets it out of her mouth. But I'm going to listen to 3 or 4 videos here I've got lined up where she talks about Euler or Euler. If I go auf Deutsch in German, you would say Euler, but there are people whom I respect that say Euler, and I've decided I'm not going to make an issue out of it. And when I'm in a group and they say it a certain way, I'm going to say it the way they say it. But I will report back to you on pronunciation for Sabine, because she's going to say it right. She says Einstein right every time. And I'm sure she's going to say Euler right or Euler right every time too. The big thing for me, I already knew this, but the big thing for me was that he said that he talked about these lines and crossings and faces and structures, but he broke out universe into, the universe is comprised of 3 blocks of energy. Everything outside the system, the macro. Everything inside the system, the micro. And then the energy that's on the edges that comprises the system. I am going to contemplate that, because you know, I know that I've always known that the lines you know, I see the vertexes on a tetrahedron as toroids, as toruses, as toroidal energies that are connecting on an axis. And I know that's an energy field, but I never thought of the little bit of energy in the system. I'm going to really think about that. He said A, B, and C, and I'm going to think about C for quite a while. So that's wonderful. I'm also glad that and I'm going to say this, that Mono kind of goes out on a limb to make sure that we're getting the topological structural, you know, tetrahedron in all of the conversation. It bends my brain around a little bit, but I'm always glad to go there because I want to see the topology of all these words that he's putting out in this book about the evolution of human beings and what's going on. So those are my takeaways today. And look, it's 10:58 my time. So that means we have 2 minutes left, and that's a good time to say goodbye. And
But it's beautiful.
okay,
I mean, I'll be happy to spend those 2 minutes. Yeah, I had an idea, it's gone, but it's come. If I have it, if it come back, I will share it. But it's very important.
well, what is it?
It's gone.
What?
But if you bear with me, maybe 1 minute, it will come back. But it was something, when you were talking, I didn't want to interrupt you, and I failed to note it down because I wanted to listen to what you are saying.
Oh, well, that's too bad.
Oh, okay. It was the topology of 3. When you say, you know, Bucky always say, you know, the minimum system is 3, right? It's a triangle.
That's the minimum form as a triangle.
The minimum form. Okay, but we're talking topologically here. In, out, and the boundary.
Right.
That is 3.
Right.
That topologically form a topologic, I don't want to say topologic system, but it is 3 things and only 3 things.
Oh, cool. Well, that is important. Thank you for saying that.
Okay.
I like it.
Very much appreciated.
Good. And if you guys want to do a study on how to say Euler on your own, you can, but I'm going to go
I
for
say Yola.
I'm good.
Yola.
I'm okay with it.
It isn't Yola, it's Euler. It's Euler.
Yeah. Okay.
The Y is after the O.
Yola.
Auf Deutsch, man does not, we don't say the ER at the end, you know? So Wagner. We don't say
Yeah.
Wagner. We say Wagner.
Bana.
Yeah, Wagner. Euler. All right, guys. See you next time.
Beautiful.
Bye-bye all.
I'll talk to you soon, everybody. You take
Yep.
care.